Mike Radich here, and I'm now joined on the phone by MMA veteran Lazar Stojadinovic. Lazar, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for asking. Lazar, the name of the game is really random. That's where I ask you a random question and you give me the real answer. Some of these questions are custom made just for you, and some of these questions are generic ones that I ask all the people I interview. So, here's the first question. Superpower you'd love to have?
Superpower I'd love to have. Unlimited strength. My favorite superhero is the Hulk. So,
Favorite movie?
favorite movie, One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest.
Favorite color?
It changes. My colors never stay the same. About right now, it's orange.
Favorite guilty pleasure?
Oh, sweet. I have a sweet tooth. That's my arch enemy right there.
Lazar, back on January 20th, you picked up a win in the main event at LFA 2. You won the fight by unanimous decision. You beat Bellator veteran Mike Richmond. How pleased were you with your performance in the fight?
Well, I was very pleased. I thought I performed very well. I thought I showed an all-around game. I showed everything. I feel like Mike Richmond is a super tough guy. He's only been finished one time in his career with by knockout, by TKO, and people don't stop him very much. I had him hurt a couple of times. I felt like he was going to go, but he's tough as nails, man. He just wouldn't go. He never gave up. I never felt quit in him. He just kept fighting all through round. And I'm actually excited about how it came out. I'm glad I fought somebody who fought back like that, and got the experience in the 3 rounds, got to showcase my skills. I'm excited.
I like to call you the great adapter because you're someone who just goes where the fight takes you. You're not someone who goes in there with a set game plan. And during your training leading up to fights, you're not someone who really studies their opponent closely. You really don't care what your opponent does in the fight. You only care what you're going to do in the fight. But I'm curious, did you have a game plan going into the fight? And if so, what was it and how well did you execute it?
No, I didn't really have a game plan. I was going there with a free mind, just so if something's not going my way, I can adapt, because that's the main mentality to have. If you go in there with a set game plan and the set game plan doesn't work out, people tend to lose themselves in the fight because of it, because you planned for 2 months to do a certain thing and it's just not coming out. So I always make sure to just go in there with an open mind, just go in there and let it flow. And if that doesn't work, then we'll let something else flow. It'll just start coming, it'll just start clicking in. And that's how I always go into my fights. That's why, I have submissions on my record, I have knockouts on my record, I have decisions on my record, because I know how to adapt. I know to have an open mind when I go in there, so whatever happens, I can adapt to that situation.
Did anything surprise you about this fight?
No, I expected it all, man. I expected him to have a great chin. I expected him to be durable. What I was saying for the whole time was that he was going to be one step behind me, and that's exactly what happened. I figured, my speed and my movement was going to be the big factor in the fight, and it was no surprise. That's what I said from the beginning. It's just, like I said before, I've had 150 amateur boxing matches. I know this is not boxing, but when you've had that much experience in boxing, your eyes are sharp. Nothing. Every time he swung at me, I was right in the pocket, and I was able to see everything just because of my experience in boxing. But man, hats off to Mike Richmond. He was a vet. What surprised is not really surprised me how tough he was, but I didn't expect him. A couple times, I heard him, but usually when I hit somebody, they at least go down. He just refused to go down. Like a couple times, his knees buckled, but he was so freaking tough. I respect him so much more after the fight before the fight, of course. Like I said, I don't research my opponent, so I really went in there with, respect for him as a fighter, but really no respect for his style. And that's what tends to happen when you're researching your opponent. You tend to have more respect for what he does good, and instead of just going in there and executing what you do good.
Mike Richmond was coming off a very long layoff. You're no stranger to long layoffs. You've had a few yourself. And obviously, ring rust affects us all differently. And I know that you've said in the past that you don't really feel the effects of ring rust. You've had some time off between some of your fights, and then you've come back and you've looked great. So with that being said, do you think Mike Richmond, do you think you got the best version of him? Do you think he was dealing with ring rust at all?
If you watched his fights, I feel like he fought the exact same way he always fights. I don't feel like he had any ring rust. I don't feel like anything was different than what I've seen from him in the past. If you watch his fights in the past, he doesn't, except that when he hits other people, they crumble. I feel, on the other hand, can take a great shot, and I don't get hit by a lot of shots. I'm very elusive, and I get out of range very good. So that was the bigger difference in his style, is that usually he hits people and they fall. I wasn't going anywhere, and I was making sure to make him miss as much as I could. But yeah, I think that was the biggest difference. I didn't really see any rust in his game. I didn't see anything rusty about him. And I've had layoffs like that before. I was out for 2 years before, and like I said, it doesn't affect me.
How many times have you gone back and watched the fight?
I only really got to see the highlights. I saw it once at a friend's house. He had it on the DVR, but that was about it. I saw it once on my friend's DVR, but I've been trying to get a copy of it, but I can't seem to find it anywhere.
Okay. You said you saw the highlights, so I guess this works also. But after the fight, Pat Miletich, who was doing the color commentary for your fight, he said after the fight that he questioned your power because you hit Mike Richmond so many times. He said, for a guy who landed that many strikes, you should have been able to either A, put Mike Richmond down, or B, put him away. So how do you respond to that when Pat Miletich post-fight was questioning your power? Because that's never been a question. Usually every time you touch someone, they go to sleep. So how do you respond?
I respect Pat. I respect Pat a lot. I've trained with him in the past at Miletich Academy, but it was something funny because if you know MMA, you research what you should do as a commentator is research the fighters, and if you research the fighters, you know that Mike Richmond is tough as nails. He usually gets rocked in this fight, and he comes right back and finishes somebody. Like I watched one of his fights where he got rocked. I forgot who was the guy. What was the guy's name? He got rocked, and the guy came to finish him, and he hit him with a cross and knocked him out. So Mike Richmond is known for taking a shot. He's only been finished once in his career. So for you to say that, like he never touches the mat. How can you say that? It was something. It was shocking to me because you should know better, but. I just think you're going to say what you have to say. I guess you have to find the negatives in something. When you have such I felt like my performance was very perfect. I felt like I did very few things wrong. So you got to find the wrong in something that is perfect.
I don't know. I don't agree with what he said. I think he should have took the angle more of good for Mike Richmond. Like Mike Richmond showed how tough he was, not so much of questioning your power. I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way what he said.
I agree completely. I feel like he should have gave more props to Mike Richmond instead of saying, Lazar doesn't take a punch. Doesn't have enough power. Like give the guy props. The guy has never been finished. He's never touched the ground, no matter who he's fought. He's fought top guys in Bellator who are known for having power and never been finished as well. So, it was a silly comment. I feel like it wasn't an accurate statement.
How did you celebrate the win?
I just went and ate a cake. Like I said, sweets is my guilty pleasure, so I just went and got some sweets and called it a night. I don't really party. I don't do those things. So got some cake, chilled in my hotel room, and got on the flight at like 3 in the morning.
Hobbies outside of fighting?
I don't really have any, man. Fighting is my hobby. It's my hobby. It's my job. It's my everything. I train all day, and then when I'm not training, I'm trying to get fights.
Do you have any pre-fight rituals or superstitions?
No, I'm not a very superstitious guy. The only thing I like to do is I like to always fight in new shorts, not for any superstitious reasons, just because I like to feel good. If you feel good, you fight good. I always get a haircut the day of the fight as well. Also, because of that, feel good, you fight good. So I always make sure that I'm cleaned up and I got new clothes on.
Do you have any post-fight rituals?
Eating cake. It's not really a ritual, but it's just something I do after a fight.
Is it a specific kind of cake or just whatever you can get your hands on?
Any kind of sweets, man. I'm just not like junk. I don't eat like, I don't go to the supermarket and pick up Oreos or crappy sweets. I make sure I go and indulge in like a good chocolate cake or a good cheesecake or something, some kind of sweet. But it has to be something legit. It can't be like crap.
You started boxing at the age of 5, and then when you were 15, you switched over to MMA. Now, you're originally from New York, but you started your MMA career in Chicago. Why Chicago? Did you move there for MMA, or did your family move there? Why Chicago?
I actually moved out of New York, and I went to live with my dad, who lived in Chicago, because at the time he was opening up a restaurant. It was an Italian restaurant, because my dad used to own an Italian restaurant in New York, and so he was already trained in cooking that style of food. So when he opened one in Chicago, he decided to do the same kind of business. So I came to Chicago. I went to Chicago to help him run the restaurant with my brother, and we started working in the restaurant business. And my cousin was fighting, and I was still kind of getting involved. Like at that point, I started like boxing, but again, because I stopped boxing at the age of 14 for a little bit, and then when I turned 15, when I got back to Chicago, I found a boxing gym and I started boxing, but not all the time. I was focused more on the restaurant. So when I went to go see my cousin fight, because my cousin used to train MMA, he was fighting, and the promoter came up to him and asked him if he knew anybody who would take a fight in short notice. And he told the promoter, well, my 2 cousins are outside. They'll be willing to fight right now if you ask them. So he came up to me and my brother and asked us to fight, and I fought that night. And then I told my dad, I'm like, I just want to start training MMA. I don't want to be in the restaurant business. I don't want to be in I don't want to do boxing anymore. I just want to do MMA. And my dad actually sold the restaurant, and we opened up a MMA gym in Chicago. And then after a year, we were having problems with the MMA gym, with the partners and stuff like that. So we sold it, and I told my dad, I'm moving to Florida. And then that's when I came down to Florida.
Leading up to the fight against Mike Richmond, everyone kept calling you a prospect. Everyone's like, this young up-and-coming guy, but you've been in the game for a very long time. I can remember your fights back in King of the Cage against Matt Jaggers. Like, I've known about you for such a long time, but people, for whatever reason, still keep calling you a prospect. So does that bother you that people still think of you just as a prospect?
Yes and no. It's a good thing, I guess, because I'm still supposedly up and comer, but it's a little annoying when you're hearing like, oh, this young prospect who's like just started. I've been doing this since I was 5 years old. I've been doing MMA since I was 16. So it is kind of annoying in a way, but I guess it's good to be called a prospect other than just nothing. Like nobody's
I don't know, maybe it's because you're only 27, but you've been in the game for such a long time. But every time I heard that, I was like, wait, is this the same guy that I remember from back in those days? Like how come they keep calling him a prospect? I've known about this guy forever.
What was bothering me, honestly, was the fact that they were undermining my record. They were saying that I fought, nobodies, I never fought anybody, and they were kind of like playing it down, like I'm one of these guys who was bred up. Like, my whole career, I was thinking, man, why has nobody, tried, to, take me in and, build me up? Like, since I started my career, they've always tried to throw me to the dogs. Like, that's in my situation. And then hearing that, he's trying to build up his record, he's fighting nobody. Like, I was hearing this, I was like, I can't believe they're trying to make me out to be this guy who picks his fights. Like, that's insane. Like, when I was 1-1, I fought Matt Jaggers, who at the time was, I think, 16-1 or 15-1 the first time we fought, and the second time we fought, he was 22-2. One of those losses being by me. So it's crazy. My fourth fight, my title defense, I fought Donald Sanchez, who had 30 fights. I mean, it was like, wow, really? I fought Pat Curran my second fight. So that was more what was annoying to me, more than being called the up and coming prospect. So yeah, it was something. It was just weird to me, like hearing that. I was like, man, nobody has any clue. Like, did you look at my resume? Did you look before, my last 2 fights before you? Like, I found that to be very funny. But I feel like I proved my point. January 20th. That's what I kept saying, is everybody's saying this. But January 20th, you guys are going to find out who I really am. And I think everybody found out who I really am.
For sure. Do you miss CFA? Because I do. I really love that promotion.
Yeah, I mean, CFA was awesome. It was done well, and it was also, right in my backyard. Like, I used to wake up and drive to the event. So that was a cool situation. And they took care of their fighters and stuff like that. But LFA did a great job. I really enjoyed fighting for them. Everything was done, professional. Everything was done legit. So I was excited about it because it's been, since I fought for CFA, it hasn't been, as well done promotion like LFA did. So it kind of brought that feeling back,
One of the best pre-fight press conferences I've ever seen is the pre-fight press conference between you and the late great Jordan Parsons. What a great press conference! I love that. That was the best, and then the fight was great too. That knockout. That's my vote. The best knockout of your career, that's the one. Because, usually when you knock out a guy like that and their head smacks the canvas, it's usually the back of their head. But this time when you knocked him out, he did a face plant and his face smacked off the canvas. That's just a brutal knockout. I'd say that's the best one of your career. What say you?
Well, it used to be the best one. Ever since, the situation happened, it was really, really sad with him, passing away.
Sure.
I haven't watched that fight. It's something. It used to be my favorite. I used to watch it all the time, and once that happened, it really didn't give me the pleasure that it used to give me. It's something that I don't really enjoy anymore. I don't even watch it. I don't even know where that footage is actually.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it since it was new either. I wouldn't even know where to look for it, but I remember it, and yeah, too bad what happened to him.
It was a really nice knockout. It was, something set up real well. I was setting it up very well, waiting for my situation. Like, in the beginning, I moved on him and kind of made him feel like the confidence of, he's scared of me. He's moving away. He's running away. And then I caught him on the 1 second of him stopping and punching. I caught him right there.
Too bad what happened to him.
Yeah.
Such a tragedy.
Sad situation.
Yeah, such a tragedy. Great build up to the fight, though. That's what I always remember about him. He was great.
Really
he was great.
I was legitimately
yeah,
through the roof. I didn't know what to do. I was like, man, this fight is probably not going to happen because I know that I'm going to get so mad that I'm going to end up attacking him because he really got under my skin.
That was great. And Luis Palomino, he's a wild man, and he's like, I need to get out of here. He was in the middle of you two guys, and he's like, I can't handle this. That's the best part.
Yeah, he knows me. We're pretty good friends, so he knows like how I am. So he was like, oh man, I gotta get away from this.
Yeah. So great. Good memories. Really missed that promotion. Yeah. Too bad they went out of business. They were doing a lot of great things. Really like the promoter too, George. Great guy.
Yeah, he's one of the guys that really recognized me from the CFA days. I remember I was in the Bellator trials in like 2010, 2011, and I was hitting mitts, and he goes and walks up to my former manager, and he's like, "Who's that guy?" And my manager's like, "Oh, this is one of my fighters." Blah blah. He's like, "If he doesn't get signed to Bellator right now, we want him on the next CFA card. This guy has got hands in MMA." And he was like one of the first guys who like really like took me in and like took care of me, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I always give him props for that. Yeah, I mean they were doing a lot of good. They were taking care of the fighters very good, and I think that was one of they were spending a lot of money. I think that's more or less what happened because George is all about taking care of the fighters, making sure that we can eat after the fight. So too bad.
Yeah.
I still about.
Oh, good. That was going to be my next question. Do you still have the CFA featherweight belt and the King of the Cage bantamweight belt? Do you still have those?
I do. They're my trophy case. That's another thing they did. They weren't like building up to my fight. They weren't mentioning the fact that I held two. Like the King of the Cage, when I won the King of the Cage belt, it was only before me. It was Uriah Faber that had the King of the Cage belt. I mean, it was a pretty big deal winning, and they were just like not mentioning. I was like, okay, try and think I'm a nobody. You're gonna find out.
That's what I was saying earlier. I wasn't hearing these things, so I kept questioning, is this the same guy that I remember? The guy from King of the Cage. I mean, it's a similar name. Maybe I'm wrong. And then I looked up and I'm like, no, I'm right. This is the same guy. How come they're not mentioning any of this? I remember that fight with Donald Sanchez and the Matt Jaggers fight, all those fights that he had in King of the Cage. I'm like, how come none of this is being brought up? I was like in 10th or 9th grade or something when you were fighting those in King of the Cage. I'm like, I remember this guy forever. How come no one's bringing this up? I couldn't believe
it. Was a little weird, but at the end of the day, I did exactly what I was supposed to do, so that's pretty much all that matters.
Yeah. How many tattoos do you have, and what are the meanings behind these tattoos?
I have 3. I have one on my forearm, one on my chest, and one on my leg. And the one on my forearm is a Serbian symbol. It means only unity to save the Serbs. And it's something that's on the flag, and it's on it's a coat of arms. Yeah.
Are you 100% Serbian, or do you have something else?
I am not. My dad's Serbian, and my mom is Dominican.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I have an eagle on my chest, which is a Serbian eagle, and I have an A on my leg, which is my old. Well, not my old, but my school, my symbol for my school, my MMA school, and I used to have one. I got the tattoo on my leg.
Obviously, you're passionate about fighting. You've been doing this your whole life, and anyone who could go through last year and have 9 fights be canceled and still stick with this sport definitely loves fighting. But besides fighting, what are you passionate about?
Well, my second favorite thing is doing with food. Like one day I want to open up a restaurant and have my own restaurant. That's kind of my after I'm done fighting. But nothing compares to fighting. Fighting is something since I've been a kid. It's just something that's been with me. It's not something that that grew on me, or I've just always loved it. I don't know. I can't explain the love for it. It's crazy. It's like I was telling my wife, actually. I was telling her that MMA is like a bad girlfriend. It's like it's something that you sometimes it does bad things to you, but you still come back to it. It's like you don't know, you can't just run away from it completely. It's like something you want to. Like when I was going through those cancellations, those 9 fights, I was like, man, I was asking myself, why do I keep coming to it? Like, it just keeps letting me down. Mm-hmm. It's always letting me down. So, yeah, it's something that you have to love it to get in it, because you're going to deal with so much crap. I mean, you really have to love it.
And especially this regional circuit. The regional circuit sucks.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's just no way. There's no other way to put it.
That was something that was shocking to me too. Is that 7 fights in 7 years? I'm like, man, you know what it's like? Like, am I the only one that knows what it's like to be in the regional? Like, all these people should know about MMA. Like, if you're not signed to a major organization, you're not going to be fighting, 4 times in the year. Impossible. You're lucky to get 1 or 2. So that was shocking to me too, that people were saying that. Yeah, but I think now, like, I won't be fighting anywhere else until the UFC calls. I think I've made my point, and I'm just going to be waiting for that phone call.
How confident are you that you'll get that phone call? You're on an 8-fight win streak, just had a great performance in a main event, in a show that's a known feeder to the UFC. How confident are you that you'll get that call finally?
Well, I'm very confident. I think that this made a statement, and I think obviously my other fights, they probably weren't paying attention to them. Mm-hmm. I think that this fight really made a statement, and they were paying attention to this one. So I'm like 95% sure that I'm going to get in now.
Did you ever try out for the Ultimate Fighter?
I did once, the year that Matt Jaggers actually got in, and I was blown away. I was like, I beat that guy twice, and he got in? Like, you gotta be kidding me. And it was just, it had to do with the record-wise. I think I was 7-5 at the time, but Jaggers, even after losing me twice, he had a really good record. I think he was 23-4 at the time, so they took him in. But I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow. And then after that, I never tried out again, because they told me that it was like invites. The invited ones usually have first go, so it's kind of like, what's the point of just showing up? It's like, unless you're invited, kind of don't have a point of just showing up.
Sure.
Likely you're not going to be getting in.
Right now, you're on an 8-fight win streak. How have you been able to put together this win streak? Is it as simple as you just moved down to American Top Team and you're surrounded by great coaches and great fighters and iron sharpens iron, and that's why you've been able to put together this win streak, or is it more complex than that?
No, I mean, I feel like for sure my coaching has a big influence in it. Having the right team and the right training partners, the right sparring partners does it. But I feel like, man, I've always been a great fighter, and I feel like just having these coaches and having these training partners has just been able to for me to put everything together. Because you can be a great fighter, but you can't be a great friend. You can't win every fight, even if you're a great fighter. And I feel like I was a great fighter before, but I just didn't put things together like I should have. I feel like with my team now, I'm able to put everything together.
What was it like fighting in Greece? I know you had to take that fight because you couldn't get fights elsewhere. You had a bunch of these fights fall through. But I'm curious in knowing, because Greece, when we think of MMA, we think of the United States, we think of Brazil, we think of Canada, we think of Russia, Japan, some of those countries. Greece is not exactly a country that we think of when we think of countries that put on MMA shows. So what was it like fighting in Greece?
Oh man, it was amazing. It was one of the coolest experiences of my career. Like, it's funny because it was just like, it was a fight. My friend was like, hey, you want to come to Greece, come to vacation? He's like, you can fight. I can get you a fight. And I was like, why not? Like, all those things sound amazing to me. You know, I've never been outside of the U.S. other than when I was a kid to Dominican Republic. So I was like, yeah, why not? So I went out to Greece, and then we actually went from Athens to an island called Corfu. And I fought literally, like, on the beach. Like, they put a ring up on the beach, and it was outside, and it was just, it was amazing. The only thing that wasn't amazing is the ring was completely wet from, like, the humidity, I guess, and everybody was slipping. So it was my comeback fight after 2 years. So I really wanted to, like, have fun in there. Like, I was like, oh, great, I'm gonna, you know, my friend's like, just knock this guy out and just go home. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna drag out the fight. I want to be in there, you know,
right.
I want to live the moment a little bit. And he's like, all right, whatever. So once I started seeing everybody slip and fall, and the fight before mine, some kid was slipping and he got hit and he fell and he actually got knocked out. And I was like, oh, I'm not risking this shit. So
right.
I just took the guy down and submitted him, like, in like 30 seconds. So it was like, it really sucked. It wasn't that part wasn't what I wanted it to be, but the experience of being there was just amazing.
Favorite food?
Pancakes is my number one meal, actually. If we're going to be specific about it, I could eat pancakes for the rest of my life, every day, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If you told me there was one food that I have to eat forever, it would be pancakes.
Favorite band and or solo artist?
Favorite band, the Beatles.
Favorite TV show, and it can be a show currently on the air or a show no longer on the air, just overall favorite TV show.
Probably of all time, Breaking Bad was pretty good, so that's probably a top list for sure.
If you could trade places with anyone in the world for a week, who would you trade places with, and why?
I would never trade places with anybody. I would want to only be myself forever.
If you could stay one age forever, how old would you stay, and why?
4. It was the age before you had any responsibilities. When I was 4, I was on the couch. I remember when I turned 5, my mom told me I had to start kindergarten. And that's when my life just got ruined. That's when all the responsibilities started coming in, like, one after another. Like, you started realizing you can't just sit on the couch and watch cartoons all day. It was such a big disappointment.
Some people are afraid of spiders. Some people are afraid of heights. Some people are afraid of the dark. What are you afraid of?
I do not like heights. I would not do anything that requires me being up high somewhere.
What would you rather be? Would you rather be the best fighter in the world, or would you rather be the highest paid fighter in the world? What means more to you, glory or wealth?
The best fighter in the world, by far.
Go-to song when you're singing in the shower?
I don't really have a go-to song. I kind of like make up my own stuff sometimes when I'm in the shower. Not even a song. My wife's always like, "What are you singing?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know. I just made it up."
Person you look up to the most? Myself.
I don't look up to anybody other than myself.
What's your pet peeve?
I'm a kind of a germaphobe. I don't really like sharing anything. Like, if somebody drinks out of my cup or eats out of my food, other than like a couple people that I have on my list, which is like my brother and my wife, obviously. Mm-hmm. That's about it. Those are the only people I can share after.
Time period you'd like to go back and visit, and why?
When I was 4. Again, because it was right before responsibilities came in.
That's funny. That's funny. What's the best thing that ever happened to you?
That's yet to come.
What's the worst thing that ever happened to you?
Probably when I had to get my surgery. That was probably one of the worst things that happened. Or when I was 3 and my mom told me we were moving to the Bronx.
But you still didn't have responsibilities, so it couldn't have been that tough.
It was still all good.
Yeah. That's great.
Actually, probably the day my mom told me I had to go to school. That was probably the worst day of my life.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you found a magic lamp, and you rubbed that magic lamp, and a genie appeared, and the genie said he was going to grant you 3 wishes. What would those 3 wishes be?
Be in the UFC and be a world champion, and probably unlimited money.
What do you worry about? What's something that keeps you up at night?
Getting old.
What's your hidden talent?
I don't really, other than fighting, I don't really have any. I'm a horrible singer. I suck in other sports. I don't really have any other talent.
Number 1 thing on your bucket list?
Number 1 thing on my bucket list. These questions are hard because the number 1 thing on my bucket list is to get that UFC title.
Last question, Lazar. If you could change one thing about the world, what would you change and why?
Dying. Obviously, because I'm afraid of death.
Lazar, real quick before I let you go, do you have any sponsors you'd like to thank, and is there anything you want to say to the fans?
If you want to follow me and check out what I'm doing, you can go to Bronx Bob 35. As far as my sponsors, I want to thank all my sponsors: Venom, Oral IV, Lopez Plumbing, Perfecting Athletes, American Top Team, Fifth Street Gym, and everybody else who helped me out for this fight. I want to thank.
Lazar, thank you for taking the time to talk. I really appreciate it, and congratulations on your victory over Mike Richmond.
Thank you, my friend.